Let me quickly introduce Pete Gershon. Thank you for being here. Pete Gershon is a writer, researcher, and the curator of programs at the wonderful Orange Show Center for Visionary Art. He has been there since 2021. He's the author of Collision, the Contemporary Art Scene in Houston, 1972-1985, which is my Bible, and Painting the Town Orange, the stories behind Houston's visionary art environments, History Press, 2015. Yeah, that was Old Testament, this is the New Testament. And the editor of Impractical Spaces Houston, and, and Two Front Doors, 50 Years of Blaffer Art Museum. He was the program coordinator for the core residency program at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston from 2013 to 2021, and the founding publisher of Signal to Noise, the Journal of Improvised and Experimental Music, from 1997 to 2013. He earned a bachelor's degree with a concentration in creative nonfiction from Hampshire College, and a master's degree in library and information science from University of North Texas. Please welcome Pete Gershon.
Hey, everybody. Hey. Thanks, Valentin, and thanks, Serpic, for having me. Nice to look around and see so many friendly, familiar faces, some of whom I haven't seen in a little while. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about one of my favorite topics, Burt Long, this guy here, Burt Lewis Long, Jr. What a god. I miss him a lot. He was a painter and a sculptor and a photographer and a producer of sculptural paintings and painted sculptures, and sometimes you weren't really sure what medium you were looking at. He kind of drew everything together. And this is a picture I took of him the day I met him in February of 2013, or 2012. February of 2012. This is in Mary Genwine's backyard. And I had been hired to join a project called the CALL Project, which stands for Conserving a Living Legacy. And this was a project that was funded by the Joan Mitchell Foundation. And the idea was to bring young artists and arts professionals together with older regional artists to help them document their work and organize their archives so they'd be better able to take advantage of opportunities as they came along. And this was a project that Patricia Hernandez put together. You see her in this picture there in the middle, and she worked with Diane Barber on the grant through Diverse Works. And I knew Patricia because I was doing some volunteer work in the archives at the Manil collection, and when we met, she was like, I'm working on this project, I need people to work, you have got to come work for me, and I'm putting you with this guy, Burt Long. You guys are going to get along great. And we really, really did. You see Mary Genwine in this picture also. That guy on the left is Neil Ambrose. He was our connection with Joan Mitchell Foundation. And on the right, that's Amy MacArthur, who worked with me, with Burt. The other, well, they called us legacy specialists. We weren't archivists, we were legacy specialists. And the other one was Jonathan Leach. And Jonathan worked with Mary, and Patricia worked with Toby Topek. And me and Amy worked with Burt. Burt got two of us because he had so much stuff. And here's a picture of me and Burt. Hard at work. Actually, I think we staged this photo. Burt's wife, Joan, took it. And, you know, it was a great experience for me. Like, Burt was a hoarder. He saved everything. He never threw anything away. He never organized anything, but he never threw anything away. And Burt was like, you know, if his name was in tiny type on the last page of the newspaper, he would save 3 copies of the whole paper. And, you know, and also Burt, like, he talked himself into every single show that happened during his whole career in Houston. So to see Burt's archive, you were really looking at the archive of the entire Houston art scene all through the late 70s, 80s, 90s, and up through the 2000s. And here's Burt back in the day. Pictured by Linda Heitkamp. This is Burt at Little Egypt Enterprises. And, you know, Burt wasn't like a traditional mystic in the sense of like a Sun Ra or a Saint EOM. I don't know, is there traditional mystic? Can you have that? I'm not really sure. But Bert definitely had his own style and his own way of doing things. And like, if you look at this picture, this was like his uniform back in the day. He had this leather jacket with a little Texas applique and this Western shirt and jeans and this big heavy wooden pendant he wore around everywhere. And he actually explained to me one time, at the beginning of my career, I was so broke I couldn't afford many clothes, so I just wore the same clothes every day and washed them in the sink every night. But if you have a uniform, people will remember you. And like at the time, actually, I had this crazy beard that was like so long I had it in a braid for a while, and I was like, I'm gonna get rid of this silly beard. And Bert was like, no, you gotta keep it, man. Everybody's gonna remember you. So I did. And I got to know Bert really, really, really well. Like, we were over at his house like 2 or 3 times for a whole year. Like, sometimes it felt like we were there every day. We really became like part of the family and got to know Bert's kids and Joan, his wife, and just incredible experience that changed my life forever. He taught me so much about art and so much about life, and I can't thank him enough. And I want to tell you a little bit about his life, which is like a really unusual life, and show you some pictures of his paintings, and we'll see where we go from there. Here's little Bert on the left. Grew up in the 5th Ward, born here in Houston, grew up in the 5th Ward. There's his parents there on the right. That's Bert Sr. and Tennessee Morris. And Bert's dad died when Bert was like 4 years old. He fell into a tank of molten metal in the shop that he worked, and the rumor was because he was trying to organize the labor there that he had been pushed. Crazy to think about. So Bert was the man of the house growing up. Like, he told me several times, I didn't really have a childhood. I was expected to make money and take care of things, and take care of my mom and take care of my siblings. He got a job really early at the Houston Club washing dishes, and he worked so hard and did so well that he wound up being assistant to the cook there. And he went to Phyllis Wheatley High School. When he graduated, he went into the Army. There's Private Bert Long. Private Bert Long, salad maker. The story that Bert told me, and you know, I take some of these things with a grain of salt, but he said when he was stationed at Camp Del Mar in Oceanside, California, he had a weekend off and he went to LA where his wife Connie was living, and he overstayed his visit and didn't get back on time, so they were going to court-martial him. But before they could, he rescued the son of his commanding officer that was drowning in the ocean. And so they called off the court-martial, and they gave him the job he wanted in the kitchen, because that's what he was really interested in. And he did well there. There's Bert and the kids living in LA in the 1960s. And Bert became a very successful executive chef. There he is in the kitchen. I mean, these pictures that I'm showing you, like, almost nobody's seen these pictures. These are all out of the family archives. And Bert was a chef in restaurants in LA, and then eventually Chicago and Las Vegas. Like, these were like big kitchens and like big fancy hotels. And eventually he had a restaurant of his own. Look, Big Bert's in Klamath Falls, Oregon. And there's the menu. This was like a little gourmet cheese store that he showed up, and he talked the owner into letting him turn it into like a fancy restaurant, Big Bert's. I mean, Bert could talk anybody into anything. And you're going to think I'm making some of this stuff up, but there actually are these pictures. He also starred in a TV show for kids, Big Bert. He was the chef that dropped by sometimes on the Mickey Mulligan show. Crazy life. He eventually wound up back here in Houston. He had been thinking about art and learning about art and even trying his hand at some paintings. This is like one of Bert's first paintings ever, like one of the very first. And you see some little symbols there from his life as a chef, the knife, that's some celery or something. Big Bert, signed in the corner. We found these after he died at his mom's house. 1976. That's a crazy painting. He said, like, well, I wanted to teach myself how to paint. Like, he was totally self-trained. He checked books out of the Houston Public Library and tried to copy them, and that's how he learned how to paint. And he would give himself these challenges, like, I'm going to do 10 paintings of water. I'm going to do 10 paintings of mushrooms. I mean, you know, these are like perfect for the dorm room wall, I feel. And, and like, he would drive around and set up these little shows in like malls and parking lots and sell paintings, or one time he traded 4 paintings for a box of groceries in Arizona. And, you know, a lot of this time he had his family in tow. Really incredible to think about. He started doing some kind of more complicated or symbolic paintings, I guess. These are kind of, I don't know, to me they're sort of like Bearden-looking, collage-y kind of things. These are both from 1977. And Bert considered this to be his first successful painting. And it's an incredible painting. And if you want to go look at it, you can go see it at the new law building at University of Houston. It's on the wall there now. They bought it recently. We actually found this painting. I did this show of Bert's work at Deborah Colton's gallery a bunch of years ago, and we showed things from the estate, but I also wanted to borrow things from private collections. And I wanted this painting so bad, we didn't know where it was, but somehow we tracked down the guy, and he wanted to sell, so Deborah handled the sale, and it's in the University of Houston collection now for all to see. And it's called The Force, or Bottom Bound, and it's a self-portrait, just like everything else Bert ever did. And there's Bert as the boat, and the waves are threatening to suck him down under, and just really powerful painting, and a weird painting, but like incredible, I feel. Here's Bert in 1978, and this is another painting that was really important to his early career, and it's called Ghost of Material Wealth. And here's a better view of it. U of H has this now too. I don't know which campus it's at, but they bought this within the past couple of years. And this introduced a character that was prominent in a lot of Bert's early work called the Spirit of Art. And, you know, Bert wasn't real, he was kind of evasive about who the Spirit of Art was supposed to be, and I tried to go back through some older articles and see if he ever talked about it, and he was pretty vague. But for me, you know, it's kind of a representation that there's more than meets the eye in the world, and a kind of a peeling back of the layers, and this figure kind of changed character from painting to painting. And, you know, here you can make up whatever story you want. We've got a guy sitting here on the couch with these pants that are worn at the knees, perhaps from hard work, and he's got his treasure there, and then maybe his companion is fading away through lack of attention. I mean, I don't know, your guess is as good as mine, but it definitely says something. And Bert won a little award for this painting, and so he really felt like, you know, I've really made it now. I can be an artist. And this is represented in this crazy painting called Rest in Peace, Chef. And he's got this sort of, I don't know if Bert drew this, but it seems to be some kind of like photocopied caricature with this clown's bow tie. These are actual real paintbrushes that are embedded in his forehead. And then we've got this little representation of the Ghost of Material Wealth on the bottom. So, and nobody knows where this painting is. This is a crib from the cover of an art magazine that used this as their cover picture, but I'd love to find this painting if it still exists. I mean, man. Ghost of a Lasting Love. This is meant to represent Bert and Connie, his first wife, and the graffiti there, the carving on the tree, that's the date that they were married. Bert always considered it to be one of his favorite paintings. He tried to get it back from the collector who had it, after, you know, he needed some quick money, and so he sold it for like some really small amount, like $500, and then Bert tried to get it back, and the collector wouldn't sell, and Bert was like, yeah, but man, that's my favorite painting. And the collector said, yeah, but that was my favorite $500. Marriage Made in Hell, flip side of the previous painting. Pretty crazy. Ghost of Energy Past. Spirit of Art. I mean, just one after another. Get a load of this one. This is called Feast. Spirit of Art. A strange figure on the left. I guess that's Bert. Bert's head on the platter, which is also a mirror. Glasses askew. Cheshire Cat smile to the right. What does it mean? So, you know, Bert was just like firing off these paintings, just one after another, like finishing a painting almost every day. We have a logbook from the 1970s where he would date every painting. All of them are signed and dated. They have a unique ID number from the very beginning he did this. And so we've got like this book that goes day by day and when he completed every painting, and we can match them all up. He had his first big show in 1979 at the O'Kane Gallery at the U of H downtown. And he had gone a couple weeks before this to the CAM because they were putting up this show called Fire. This is 1979. And this is James Searles' big show with 100 Texas artists, and it was going to be the biggest and best thing. And he didn't know Bert yet. And Bert walked into the gallery and was like, "Man, you got to put me in the show." And James Searles was like, "No, we have 100 artists, and we're hanging the show now, and I don't know you, but like, yes, I'll come and see your show over at U of H. We'll come." And so one day, Bert's at the gallery, and who walks in but it's James Searles and John Alexander and Jim Harithis and Charmaine Locke and Sal Scarpita all came together to see Bert's show. And you see Bert shaking hands with Sal Scarpita, and if you don't know Sal Scarpita, he was one of Leo Castelli's. Leo Castelli said he was his best and least successful artist. And he had a connection here in Houston through Jim, who was like his main champion. So these guys all walk into the gallery together, and Sal Scarpita tears up in front of a painting and writes Bert a check on the spot. So, you know, for Bert, this is like, okay, I am really, really an artist now. And there's Bert and Sal and John Alexander. The spirit of art at that show in bodily form. Bert with the spirit of art. So, you know, Searles sees all these paintings, and he's like, well, I really messed up by not having 101 paintings in my show, but they just immediately became like best friends. And here you see them at Lawndale Annex, just barely getting off the ground in 1979. The first show at the Lawndale Annex in the fall of 1979 was called Powwow Artists and Models Ball. And this was like the big thing that Searles and Bert cooked up together. It was going to be the biggest. Actually, is Lynn still here? No. Lynn left. Okay, I'm going to tell you something that Lynn told me. It was originally Bert and James, they were just going to do kind of a show of their stuff and like their closest friends. And Lynn, actually, they told Lynn about this, and she was like, "No, you have to do something that draws together the whole community. You should put everybody in this show." And they were like, "She's right. We got to put everybody in the show." So it's artists from all over Texas and Louisiana, and I think even Oklahoma, and there was something like 500 works on the show, and thousands of people came. It was really hot. It's like real, I don't know, was anybody at Powwow? Tara was. Oh, you did? Okay, great. So this was like a benchmark moment in the history of Houston's art community. And here's a show that Bert did at Lawndale in 1983 called The Healing Force, and Bert always considered this to be his most important and most successful show. And you see here to the left a curious installation that Bert made. Look, that's called Hindsight. And he borrowed some of these materials. He had like an uncle or something who had a funeral home, so he had access to some of this stuff. And it's a cool piece. You see, basically, you know, you see this figure in the casket. It's supposed to be the artist, I guess, and he's got this rearview mirror from a car embedded in his forehead. You see the spirit of art lurking in the pews to the left again. This amazing piece in the center there, "Thou shalt make art." Just this directive. And like for me, that's also like the spirit of art, is like there's this voice just commanding Bert to make. And right after Bert died, we went into his mom's house in the 5th Ward, which is just this collapsing, falling down house, and they knew there was a bunch of stuff there that we had to get out. And we found the casket, and we went and looked. There's the head. The head's now in a box. I can't remember whether we sent it to the archives or whether it's with the estate, but that head does survive. And so Bert was just a great painter. I mean, just like absolutely superb. This is one of my favorite paintings that Bert did. Journey to Man Ray, it's called. And he actually showed me the Man Ray painting that he was kind of referencing here. But, you know, he's done something different with it. It's kind of, you know, lips or watermelon or, I don't know, could be something else. Who knows? Evolution of creativity. he really started to develop this vocabulary of the smile, the hand, the heart. Some of these things, kind of obvious, but he just began to generate this vocabulary of motifs that he would use all the time. A sculpture called Quest, where, this is like the kitchen sink. He kind of stuck everything on this. And it lives at the Houston airport system now. Kind of the perfect piece to represent Burt in the collection, I think. This little suitcase full of stuff going here and there. Here's Burt at the opening of Fresh Paint at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston in 1985, curated by Barbara Rose and Susie Khalil. And he's standing with an incredible painting he did in 1980 called The Family, but this was like kind of pinnacle moment for the art scene here at the time. And of course, Burt was incredibly happy to be in this high-profile show.
It was a great party. It was one of the best parties in it.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I didn't put it in the thing, but there's like a picture from the balcony above of everybody there, and probably nobody could even move around. There were so many people there. And, people were showing up in limos. This was like a big, big moment, and everybody thought they were going to get a gallery in New York City and everything was going to be solved forever. And it didn't work out that way. This painting here, though, Van Gogh, this is in the Met's collection. If you look close down on the shelf there, that's a brain. Burt's friend, who was a brain surgeon at the Med Center, gave it to him. And I didn't put it in here, but we found a note in the archive. It's like dot matrix printer note saying Burt, here's what you asked for. Please don't ever tell anybody that I gave it to you, because it stretches the boundaries of ethics, and I don't want anybody else asking me for a brain. This thing went to a biennial they were doing in Phoenix at the time before it went to the Met, and Burt drove the brain separately because it couldn't be shipped. So he drove it to Phoenix, and they had a special ceremony of Burt putting the brain into the jar. Another reality I have to mention, a show that Burt co-curated with Serpik here, and here's the catalog with Burt's incredible artwork on the front, and they're exploring works that possess qualities of magic, mysticism, spiritualism, and alchemical transmutations of matter. And I think it kind of follows from some of the points that Susie Khalil and Barbara Rose were trying to make about a Houston school with Fresh Paint, and the idea that really we had something special going on here in Houston that didn't have anything to do with what was happening in New York and didn't have anything to do with what was happening in Los Angeles or any other art scene, that something special and rare and authentic had sprouted up here in Houston, and Burt was right at the very center of that. I can't not mention Burt's incredible ice sculptures. This is a small one he did for a show at Lawndale, and you see Mary Genowines in that picture, and Ed Wilson and some other familiar people. He did a bunch of these. Here's one he did on the Strand in 1980 down in Galveston. And, this was performance art too. I mean, just tons and tons of people would gather around every time he did one of these things. There's one he did in Oakland. I think Dominique de Menil paid for that one. Here's one at the Transco water wall. There was a whole tour of Houston outdoor sculpture that Burt joined, and he did a different sculpture at every venue in front of the can. There's the paper that was in the newspaper when Burt made that. And of course, he was making these in Texas. I think there was only one that he did outside of Texas in cold weather. These were all in Texas, so they would, before he even finished them, they would start to melt. But they would change shape, and Burt would take pictures of the colored water puddling. So it was just this amazing transforming sculpture. There was one that he did in a refrigerated case for a show at the CAM that Valerie Cassell Oliver curated in 2005 called Black Conceptual Art Since 1970, I think was the name of the show. And so they made a special refrigerated case recessed in the wall with an ice sculpture inside of that. And then when the show was over, the whole case went to his collector, Manny Sanchez's warehouse. And the idea was it was going to last forever, and I think it was about 3 months, and Manny was like, I can't keep paying, the electricity bills are ridiculous. So he unplugged it and it melted. Here's Bert in 1990. I think this painting is called Eye Contact. Look, there's a knife actually stuck to glued to the frame. He made these heavy hydrostone frames for a lot of his paintings around this time that were really distinctive. You always know you're looking at a Bert Long thing when you see that frame. And he said to me one time something like, yeah, I couldn't afford to frame my paintings, so I started making these frames. And it's like, but it probably cost you more to make these heavy, complicated frames and ship things around than if you just had cheap frames so you could take them in and out. But, I mean, it was part of the art, one of the main parts of the art. And he would put anything, bullets, fish heads, almost anything you can name stuck into these hydrostone frames. Plaster, sculpted on chicken wire. And so this is around 1990. This is the picture they put in the paper actually when Bert won the Rome Prize and went to the Academy in Rome. And that was transformational for Bert. And he spent a lot of time going all over Europe. And he and Connie settled in a place called Berzicana, Spain, in the Extremadura region. And that red brick building down on the lower right, that was Bert's studio. And he lived there for a number of years. He made a lot of paintings. He made these whole series of these big fabricated things with neighbors in Spain that they would burn them at the end. And I couldn't find the picture of the burn, but here's a couple of the things they made. And here's an example of one of the paintings he made in Spain. These are smaller paintings on these little framed boards. This one, Love Assassinated, there's video of him taking this painting out with a bunch of guys out in a field and shooting it full of holes. Here's a striking installation he did in Philadelphia in 1993 called Jive Plantation. He printed all that watermelon fabric, that's the tablecloth there and the Klansman's robe. Another view from that show, those are fiberglass watermelons with glass eyes in these little tufted hay piles, and there's one in a noose hanging from the roof. Bert moved back to Houston around 1997 after Connie got brain cancer and had to come back to Houston for treatment at the Med Center. And she died pretty soon after that. And he did an installation at Project Row Houses in 1998 in her memory. You're seeing it there. That's actually the figure, that's a cutout of Connie taken in her hospital bed that's kind of hanging suspended. Another view, this sort of desert floor. He actually had corn crops growing in one room. You see Ghost of Material Wealth is making a reappearance there on the right. Came back really, really strong in 2000. The biggest ice sculpture he had ever made, this is up in Providence, Rhode Island. It's called Carta. He made it with a bunch of day laborers who were coming out of prison to work with him. It's the only one he ever made in cold weather. He did a Spark Park up in the 5th Ward. This is at the E.O. Smith Middle School that he had attended back in the day. This thing's pretty much in ruins now. Here's Field of Vision, as originally sited in the 5th Ward. It was later moved to the Project Row Houses campus, and really just, it looked like somebody attacked it with a baseball bat by the time they took it out. Not very much of it survives, I don't think. And then, this is the showstopper. This is I think the signature painting of Bert's career, Riding the Tiger. This is about, and that's Bert, but also he's a stand-in for any artist, and it's really about the situation that the artist is in. No, but you're going to see the one that's at the library soon. This one's owned by Craig Massey. And it's made appearances over the years. It is big. I wish I had a picture of us trying to move it out of Bert's studio to photograph it a bunch of years ago. And we got it out of the studio, at an angle through the doorway without an inch to spare. And we drove it on top of Jack Massing's truck to some warehouse where we could put the lights up and take a proper picture of it. It was nuts. A lot of works on paper in Bert's later years, fewer campus paintings, but You know, I mean, look at that, man. A lot of studies and sketches, studies of things that never got made. Some things did get made. Here's what's at the library. This amazing long painting that has the entire history of art all behind it. And this is in the kids section for inspiration. Bird at the center, at the wheel of the boat. Again, the boat's back and the waves. Constant preoccupation for him throughout his career. And then towards the very end of his life, he made, like, I think there's a series of some of the most successful paintings he ever made. He was in 2 shows towards the end of his life. One was at the Young Center, and it was based on the Red Book. And the other one was at a private gallery called the Von Christopher Gallery. And just look at some of these paintings. Madness. Creativity in prison. I don't know if you can see Bert there. That one's good. Look at the detail on that. Holy cow. This is one of his last main pieces of art. I think he was kind of aware of his mortality and showing his incredible sense of humor that we know and love him for. This is a blinking neon sign. That's his last piece that he ever did. This is a lithograph called Eureka that was done at a Philadelphia print shop. And here's a picture that I took of Bert in November of 2012. And he set up this whole page. He's like, I need you to take a picture of me. All right, I'm going to sit here on the bed, and you're going to stand there. And like, I took a picture, and I was like, okay, no, but stand farther back. So he planned this whole, he wanted this shot. And like I said, we were at Bert's house, like, you know, all the time. And towards the end of his life, he couldn't really paint anymore. He was chasing a cockroach with a fly swatter, and he fell, and he broke his shoulder, you know, and his right hand, so he couldn't paint. And the doctors had him on all this morphine for pain, and it was like really, really rough on Bert, really tough to see. And he died not too long after that, not from the fall, but from pancreatic cancer, which is, you know, no picnic. And we continued to work with Joan for another 6 months or so to get his papers together and finish the work that we were doing. And since then, I've really tried to be like a respectful and enthusiastic advocate for Bert's work. And I've been really lucky to organize some shows. Here's some work that I showed at the Young Center in 2015, including this incredible stained glass lighthouse thing in the middle that had a whole soundtrack with crashing thunder and blinking light inside. A show that Deborah Colton let me do at her gallery with both work from the estate and borrowed works. And all the archives that we worked on with Bert's help, I helped to facilitate the transfer of all that stuff to University of Houston. So you can go to Special Collections and you can look through all of this stuff.